We return to our study on the Gospel of Matthew. We have been working our way through the parable called the parable of the weeds or the darnel. We will be looking at in this reading Matthew chapter 13 and verse 30. I will be reading from the New American Bible. So, chapter 13 and verse 30 of Matthew. Let them grow together until harvest. Then at harvest time, I will order the harvesters. First collect the weeds and bundle them up to burn. Then gather the wheat into my barn. I live in what is a small city in this part of the world. Not necessarily a small city in some parts of the world, but I'm in between, halfway between Toronto and Buffalo, New York. St. Catharines has traditionally had a public bus system where all the buses do a loop. Now, the city is maybe starting to move away from that because of growth. That's a different issue. A bus route traditionally in this sort of system starts at the downtown bus terminal and has an outbound route. And so as it goes and does its route, it reaches the furthest point on that outbound route. At which point, the number on the bus changes and the bus now becomes an inbound route. And it makes its way through this route back to the downtown terminal. So what we're saying is if you get on a St. Catharines City bus and don't bother to get off, you will always end up at the same point. No matter where you get on that bus, if you stay on it long enough, you will always end up at the downtown transit hub. It did not matter whether that bus was an outbound bus or an inbound bus, for there's always this same result. Life is like the transit system I know in St. Catharines. It does not matter where you are or when you get on, it always has the same destination. You see, life has the same inevitability as my transit system. It will always arrive at the same point. In the case of life, we are talking of the judgment of God. All of human history and human activity is moving to the judgment of God. Now, unlike my transit system, I cannot use the internet and Google and determine when the next bus is coming and in which direction it is going, so to speak. All I can do is get on and it will come to pass. What we know is that moment will come. It will either come to pass when I take my last breath of life, or it will come when Jesus returns to fully establish his kingdom on this earth. Darnel and wheat were gathered together, and then because of the noxious nature of darnel, it was removed. We understand why it can make you sick. Now we need to understand how. How did they at this point in time come to know what to look for? Well, it actually was in terms very simple. There is a difference in color between the mature wheat kernel and the mature darnel kernel. Wheat is brown in color, darnel is black in color. You see, at the time of judgment, it is clear what is true wheat and what is false wheat. And this is another name for darnel, false wheat, because it was known to grow with true wheat. And the same way when it comes to the day of judgment, the determination of who the righteous are and who are the unrighteous will be that obvious. Let us not confuse the fact that there are elements of this which in the present are a mystery to us. This is so, but it will not be so on the day of judgment. Those people who have lived deceptive lives in this world are fooling themselves if they think they can continue that deception past the day of judgment. The dark side of this parable is that there was nothing one could do with the darnel. The darnel was completely useless. And not only useless, it was dangerous. It had to be burned up. Given the fact that it made people sick, this had to be destroyed. There was no redeeming qualities found in this plant. It was burned up, says Jesus. Life when you are young seems forever. You have time and you have the freedom to do what you want, or so you think. The older you get, the more your perspective changes. And in time, you go from thinking 10 years is a blip in time to thinking 20 years is a blip in time, to knowing that 50 years is a blip in time. The point is, the way we go through life is different. What we deal with is different, but where we end up is the same. Yes, we all may take different routes, but we will all end up at God's judgment. If this is so, then what type of lives should we live?